Hi, welcome back. We're on to chapter 6 of the BFG. This chapter is called The Giants. "But if you are so nice and friendly," Sophie said, "then why did you snatch me from my bed and run away with me?"
"Because you saw me. If anyone has ever seen a giant, he or she must be taken away hip switch."
"Why?" asked Sophie.
"Well, first of all," the BFG said, "human beings is not really believing in giants, is they? Human beings is not thinking we exist."
"I do," Sophie said.
But that is only because you has seen me," cried the BFG. "I cannot possibly allow anyone, even little girls, to be seeing me and staying at home. The first thing you would be doing would be scuttling around and yodeling the news that you were actually seeing a giant. And then a great giant hunt, a mighty giant look-see, would be starting up all over the world with the human beings all rummaging for the great giant you saw and getting wildly excited. People would be coming rushing and bushing after me with goodness knows who what, and they would be catching me and locking me into a cage to be stared at. They would be putting me in a zoo or the bumpkin house with all those squiggling hippo dumplings and crocodile-dillies."
Sophie knew that what the giant had said was actually true. If any person reported actually seeing a giant haunting the streets of a town at night, there would be most certainly a terrific hullabaloo across the world.
"I will bet you," the BFG went on, "that you would have been splashing the news all over the wonky world, wouldn't you, if I hadn't wiggled you away?"
"Well, I suppose I would," Sophie said.
"And that would never do," said the BFG.
"So what will happen to me now?" Sophie asked.
"If you go back, you'll be telling the world. Most likely on the telly bunkum box and the radio squeaker. So you will just have to be staying here with me for the rest of your life."
"Oh, no," cried Sophie.
"Oh, yes. But I'm warning you, if you ever go whiffling about out of this cave without I is with you, or you will be coming to an ucky-mucky end. I is showing you now who is going to eat you up if there's ever catching one tiny little glimpse of you."
The big friendly giant picked Sophie off the table and carried her to the cave entrance. He rolled the huge stone to one side and he said, "Peep out over there, little girl, and tell me what is you seeing." Sophie, sitting on the BFG's hands, peeped out of the cave. Picture? The sun was up now and shining fiery hot over the great yellow wasteland with its blue rocks and dead trees.
"Is you seeing them?"
the BFG asked. Sophie, squinting through the glare of the sun, saw several tremendous tall figures moving among the rocks about 500 yards away. 3 or 4 others were sitting quite motionless on the rocks themselves.
"This is giant country. Those is all giants. Every one."
It was a brain-boggling sight. The giants were all naked except for a sort of short skirt around their waists, and their skin was burnt brown by the sun. But it was the sheer size of each one of them that boggled Sophie's brain most of all. They were simply colossal, far taller and wider than the big friendly giant upon whose hand she was now sitting. And oh, how ugly they were. Many of them had large bellies like Mr. Alcorn. All of them had long arms and big feet. They were too far away for their faces to be seen clearly, and perhaps that was a good thing. "What on earth are they doing?"
"Nothing,"
said the BFG.
They's just moochling and foochling around, waiting for the night to come. Then they will all be galloping off to places where people is living to find their suppers.
You mean to Turkey? Sophie said.
Bone-crunching giant will be galloping to Turkey, of course. But the others will be whiffling off to all sorts of flung-away places like Wellington for the booty flavor and Panama for the hatty taste. Every giant is having his own favorite hunting ground.
Do they ever go to England?
Often. They say the English is tasting ever so wonderfully of crawd scallop.
I'm not sure I quite know what that means.
Meanings is not important. I can't be right all the time. Quite often I is left instead of right.
And are all those ghastly beasts over there really going off again tonight to eat people? Sophie asked.
All of them is guzzling human beings every night. All of them excepting me. That is why you will be coming to an ucky-mucky end if any of them should ever be getting his gogglers upon you. You would be swallowed up like a piece of frumpkin pie, all in one dollop.
But eating people is horrible, Sophie cried. It's frightful. Why doesn't someone stop them?
And who, please, is going to be stopping them? Asked the BFG.
Couldn't you?
Never in a pig's whistle, cried the BFG. All of those man-eating giants is enormous and very fierce. They is all at least 2 times my wideness and double my royal highness.
There's a picture. It's a little hard to see, so I'm going to put it in close. Twice as high as you?
Easily that, said the BFG. You is seeing them in the distance. But just wait till you get them close up. Those giants is all at least 50 feet tall with huge muscles and... I is the titchy one. I is the runt. 24 feet is puddle nuts in giant country.
You mustn't feel bad about it, Sophie said. I think you're just great. Why, even your toes must be as big as sausages.
Bigger. They are as big as bumble hammers.
How many giants are there out there? Sophie asked.
9 altogether, the BFG answered.
That means that somewhere in the world, every single night, 9 wretched people get carried away and eaten alive.
Oh, more than that. It's all just depending, you see, on how big the human being is. Japanese beans is very small. So a giant will need to gobble up about 6 Japanese before he's feeling all full up. Others, like Norway people and the Yankee Doodles, is ever so much bigger, and usually 2 or 3 of those makes a good tuck-in.
But do these disgusting giants go to every single country in the world? Sophie asked.
Well, all countries, excepting Greece, is getting visited time or another. The country which a giant visits is depending on how he is feeling. If it is very warm weather and a giant is feeling as hot as a sizzle pan, he'll probably go galloping far off to the Frisbee North to get himself an Eskimo or 2 to cool him down. A nice fat Eskimo to a giant is like a lovely ice cream lolly for you.
I'll take your word for it, Sophie said.
And then again, if it's a frosty night and the giant is friging with cold, he'll probably point his nose toward the sweltering hot lands to guzzle up a few Hottentots to warm him up. If you're wondering where the Hottentots lived, I understand that the Hottentots were living in a country in southern Africa area called Rhodesia. And it's no longer called Rhodesia. I think it's Zimbabwe now, but I'm not sure. I have to look that up. Why don't you Google it?
And if you put me down on the ground and I was to walk out among them now, would they really eat me up?
Oh, like a whiff's whittle, cried the BFG. And what is more, you is so small they wouldn't even have to chew you. The first one to be seeing you would pick you up in his fingers and throw you down like a drop of drain water.
Let's go back inside. I hate even watching them. That was the end of that chapter. I'll see you later. Goodbye.